All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me on this Monday. All your kids, if you got kids, they're back to school. So typically, when kids go back to school, we start thinking about, what we need to do to finish fourth quarter strong, finish the year strong. It is typically, fourth quarter and first quarter are typically the most challenging quarters for real estate agents. For fourth quarter, it's like we're exhausted, like we're just worn out. So we feel like we need to give ourselves a break. And football season is a reminder of that. You're right. You start seeing the preseason games come on. College is right around the corner. The holidays are going to follow that. It's pumpkin spice lattes and sweaters and snuggles and just family time, to close out the year. But that is the reason for like the hereditary insanity cycle that most real estate agents fall into. This is a trap, right? Because we are working, nonstop, we're doing 60 hours a week, 100 hours a week. We work a lot. We're always on. That is just a little, I think, opportunity for me to insert the plug of, you know, finding your niche because it doesn't feel like work once you start doing, finding your true calling in the real estate business. But fourth quarter, if we suck fourth quarter, then we're going to be sucking it up first quarter, and we're really not going to get our business going until second and third quarter. And we work so hard second and third quarter to make up for losing those other two quarters that just the cycle repeats itself, right? Fourth quarter rolls around, we're exhausted, we coast. Maybe we'll close a couple things here or there to finish out the year, just enough to be able to afford those Christmas presents under the tree. And then we tell ourselves, hey, we'll get this started. We'll get this back on track first quarter without being cognizant of the fact that we've already screwed ourselves because we didn't finish strong. How we finish is going to have a direct impact on how we start 2026. And we have the power right now, I think, to do a couple different things besides like having enough money to put presents under the tree this year, which is extremely important to our mindset, everything, right? I mean, that anxiety will start creeping in, at some point. Or it may, if we don't have kids, then we may just be anxious about real estate as a career altogether and go, is this the year that I find my gear, I find my lane, I find my calling, or is this the year that I kind of, hang it up? So those are, I think, very predominant sources of anxiety across the real estate industry. Like, should I keep doing this? Because, around the first year, we've got fees that typically come due and all those things. You're like, should I do this another year? Should I give this another year? So the opportunity before us is like, let's try to break some shit down the home stretch this year. Let's find one radical approach that we can implement that will either make or break us, right? So if, you have a really strong local following, if you're a hometown, homegrown person that has a bunch of raving fans in the real estate market you serve, then I would say, hey, the best course of action for you, the thing that makes the most sense is for you to, just double or triple down your sphere of influence. If you're in a market where you're not well known yet and you want to find the lowest hanging fruit, then I would say FSBOs. Okay. And so, there's a lot of things we can do to come up with a finish strong strategy for the year. My worry is that it will be overwhelming. Okay. We will be overwhelmed and subsequently underwhelmed by our results because we're just kind of treading water because we threw too much, at the wallet and none of it ended up sticking. So what I'm talking about here is I've come up with a whole outline of things to talk about to include a weekly schedule, right? So maybe you could work on implementing a weekly schedule that would really provide some structure and keep you on task over time so that you can have the best possible ending to 2025. But been there, done that. I mean, I've done this, years now, probably more. Maybe we've gone from the few years into the several years of me doing a finish strong challenge, and we tried all kind of stuff. None of that shit worked. So Blake and I are just brainstorming this morning about how to get everybody's attention. What could they, what could you do right now, like today? Could you do right now tactically that would present opportunities immediately? So immediate action, immediate gratification. So this speaks to the real estate agent mindset. Just all you got to do is reflect on yourself and go, do my expectations for results in real estate? Real estate agents tend to have, this need for instant gratification. The seed they plant or planted yesterday, they want to bear fruit the next day. And that's not going to be possible by implementing a schedule, a weekly schedule. It's going to be more of a long play. And so is the niche marketing. We talked about that last week. How I'm just desperate for, I can feel the results. I can feel the wins coming, but they're not coming fast enough for me to prove to you all that this works. And they're not coming fast enough for you guys to look at it and go, man, this works. So I don't have a whole lot of, I think, realistic expectations, based on, historical trends of these finish strong challenges that anything long play is going to work. You say, all right, well, I'm going to double, triple down. I'm going to ramp up this YouTube channel between now and the end of the year. I mean, if you start laser focusing on developing a YouTube channel, it's not going to pay any dividends until first or even second quarter of 2026. The schedule, I think first quarter of 2026, you would see that, but it's just too long. It's just too long for agents. So we need to do something now so that you can get a win now. And then if anybody wants to talk about, developing a schedule, I mean, that could be more of a soft play, right? We could kind of work on that, you know, easily at the same time that we're working on immediate results. Okay, so let's cut the shiznit and talk about like what's the most low-hanging fruit out there? And even if you're a homegrown hometown person watching this replay, because none of us are hometown people in the markets we serve on the call right now, which makes us uniquely positioned, I think, to to lean on each other to get this done, or just to simply recognize the fact that you're not alone. You're not alone. All right. I need to get some closings between now and Christmas. I need to stack the deck. So does everybody else on the call, right? So we're all in this boat together. So let's think about this. All right. So it stems from a conversation Blake and I were having last week about, breaking into his community. He wants his niche. He wants to be, one of the go-to agents in Ross Bridge. And I have been a party to two transactions, or really one transaction in Ross Bridge. There was another opportunity where myself and another former agent of ours that was with Blueprint approached a for sale by owner and said, hey, are you offered a commission to agents if they bring you a buyer? And both those FSBOs said, yes, we're offering 3%. And the reply was, great, I can list it for that. Total, in, out, done deal, list it. So if I list it and sell it to a person that's not represented by an agent, I get 3%. If I sell it, it's a co-broke transaction. Another agent has to be compensated. They get 2, I get 1. All right. So given the price point at Ross Bridge, you're going to have, a difficult time finding an agent that's going to scoff at 2%. All right. They might not be jazzed about it, but they're going to, you can get the house sold. So have done this, implemented this, and had success with it. All right. Collected the 1% because it was a co-broke transaction, but the open houses, the sign calls, all these things generated a great deal of money in commissions. Okay. So my share of it was, all in over $7,000. All right. So that's great. We get a couple of those between now and Christmas. We're probably feeling pretty good. All right. So this is a for sale by owner. It could also be an expired listing strategy. Okay. So what I would suggest that you do, the easiest thing to do, we're going to be focused on lowest hanging fruit. So if you don't have technology platform like the Red X that delivers expired leads are a lot of work. You know, you got to research them. You got to get the addresses. You got to figure out whether they've been relisted. You got to try to get the seller's phone number. A lot of times we're sending handwritten notes and doing all these kind of things. I can go to Zillow or I can go to Google right now and Google Hoover FSBO, Rossbridge FSBO, Madison FSBO, Gardendale FSBO, Fultondale FSBO, you know, oh, so on and so forth, on and on and identify the FSBOs and have the number right there. And I can use forewarn to get the seller's phone number. And I can, if I'm too scared to call, I can send a text. I have set up many a FSBO meeting just over text. Okay. So maybe if you texted it for sale by owner, you had a successful conversation via text, might give you a little swagger to pick up the phone next time. You know, who knows? So what can we say? What can we offer? There's more than one way to approach this. So I can, since I do have the ability to create a home tour video with my phone and post it to YouTube and have it look good enough that a seller goes or a FSBO goes, man, great job. I really like that. So I have that as an offer. Okay, so what my strategy might be is that I want to make the listing offer in person and not over phone, not over text. So I want to get in the door, get some rapport built, you know, have some conversations outside of real estate, you know, just developing that rapport and you know, doing some basic relationship building, okay? But I certainly don't have to do that, and I certainly can have multiple different offers. One of which we discussed this morning prior to the call was just charging a flat fee. So what if you just said, hey, I'm going to do a limited service agreement. I'm going to get this in the MLS for you. All right. So I've had multiple people, I'm telling you, for a fact, ask me if I would do this for them. You know, whether I'm shooting a video for them or what, and they'll say, "Hey, do you do these flat fee listings? Like, will you put this in the MLS for me for a fee?" And I've never said yes to that question. And this morning we're going, God, what does that cost you? What does that cost you? And then Blake had a very profound quote. Maybe he'll share it with us during the call today about the reality around that. It's a very stupid thing to say no to. I had an opportunity to could have put a sign on the ground at a house in Fairhope that was priced in the 800s. Did a video for the seller. He's like, "Hey, can I pay you to put this in the MLS?" I said no. All right. So some of these, if you are good at marketing and you want to get your foot in the door that way, you know, we're just asking people, would they be open to? Would you be open to? This is a great introductory script to a kind of prelude to the offer, right? It's just kind of loosen people up, right? Because they know when they see a real estate agent coming that real estate agent wants something, right? You know, I saw this funny TikTok last night. It was like, what happens when you make eye contact with a real estate agent? This chick's just out in the middle of a field. She starts running towards the camera. I mean, when real estate agents hear that at a coffee shop, hear somebody talking about real estate and just very cringy, they go and interrupt the conversation. So we need to kind of diffuse that and just say, hey, would you be open to this? You know, if it costs you nothing, would you be open to this? If it only costs you $500, would you be open to me getting professional pictures of your home, putting in the MLS, you know, making sure all the showings get scheduled, trying to get some feedback for you? Would you be open to that for $500? Does that sound like a worthwhile service? I bet you a lot of people would take you up on that. All right. So let's just use Blake as an example. So Blake gets, all of a sudden, he gets a real estate sign up in the community he seeks to build a niche in, build some authority in. Who has to know what he makes? You know, is anybody going to question that? It's kind of the same concept of Like how people can think you're like real estate agent on fire just by previewing homes and creating content around it. Like, dang, he's always out looking at properties, always out working with buyers, he's always out, marketing listings. This guy or this gal's on fire. So what we're doing is we're trying to create the perception of success. And the perception of success is like everything in real estate. How we're perceived is whether or not, often at the end of the day, determines whether or not we have landed on that golden ticket in real estate, which is like the trust factor. We're building trust. All right. So Blake's been working his wiffle ball team for a while now, trying to squeeze, a listing out of that opportunity, and it just hasn't happened yet. So a listing sign in the ground, even if he's only collecting a fee for that, or if he's doing it for a reduced commission, having a sign on the ground at the next practice, the next game, and go, hey guys, you see my listing? If you got any buyers, let me know. Da, da, da. And they go, oh shit, Blake's finally got a listing. Another example, I went to a listing appointment at the lake. The people that I was interviewing with knew how long I've been in the real estate. They know my marketing skills. They know a lot about what I do. They follow me on social media. I didn't get their listing because I had yet to take a listing on the lake. It was just that simple. It just came down to that. Like, oh gosh, we thought you'd, we know you've worked with some buyers on the lake, but we just assumed some of these deals you were doing were listings, and we just need to go with somebody who's actually listed and sold a property on Smith Lake. Hey, no harm, no foul. I mean, that's your prerogative. You got to do what you feel like is best for you. I think at this point, it's immaterial, but I think they were probably regretting that decision. But it just goes to show you what the mindset is and how important our own confidence is, our own swagger is to developing a business that is on autopilot for the most part. We talked about that during my interview with Jason Patton, just how he doesn't stress about where his next deal is going to come from. He just knows it's going to come because he's just doing the right things, right? He's doing the dollar productive things day after day, week after week that generate the results. All right. And so for us, we have got to create a spark that starts a really big ass fire in our bellies. And we need immediate results to something tactically that we can deploy that is going to pay big dividends. And I just think the lowest hanging fruit out there right now is a for sale by owner. Now, the other thing I was forgetting to tell you all about, which really stunted my growth on the lake early on. So I had approached a for sale by owner. Okay. This for sale by owner was listed at the time for 2.8 million. It's like a 6,000 square foot house on Smith Lake. I'm talking bad to the bone. So I go do a video and I asked the seller prior, I was like, hey, would you want to be in this video with me? Because I was like, there's no way I can do a 6,000 square foot estate on Smith Lake justice. I mean, you've lived there I think they'd lived there for about 12 years. They know everything about it. I was like, man, this would be great. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So we ended up developing a great relationship. I think about a month later, he called me and said, hey, Jason, we've come to the point where we're thinking about listing this property. And of course, I've kept in touch with him the whole time, just kind of checking in, doing things like that. And he said, but I'm looking for an agent that will list my house for a flat fee. And I poo-pooed it. I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea. Let's meet in person and I'll tell you why. So I never got the call back to meet in person. He listed with an agent that they have, I think it's a friend of theirs. It's their child, but she's a grown woman and a mom now. Real estate agent Keller Williams Hoover. She listed it for a flat fee. The flat fee was $15,000, and they offered, I think, a 2% commission to the agent that brought a buyer. So if I just had said, hell yes, I mean, whatever you're offering, I'll take it. I would have had that listing. I would have not been turned down by the other listing. I would have had a sign in the ground early on that I could have done all this marketing with. I could have put it on Facebook Marketplace. I could have shared it to all those buy, sell, trade groups, all just the on and on and on marketing. The listing sold for like 2.5 million. It's just crazy. When I forget this example so often, but it is such a glaring example of the opportunity that's out there and how I screwed it up. How many people on Smith Lake would that are paying 5 and 6% on these $1 million plus homes would go, God, where have you been? All right. Any thoughts, questions, comments? We got nothing in the chat. We got no signs of life going on. Let's do some Q&A to round this out. Let's talk through this. What are the pros? What are the cons? What are we worried about? What are our limiting beliefs? What are we struggling with as it relates to this approach?
I don't initially my first thought would be just the amount of resentment you get from the realtor community. But I guess if you're going to go that route, you've just been tired of it.
So, yeah. So I think that's a legitimate
Be
concern,
full
right?
full honesty, right? Like
Yeah,
you can
because
get a lot of shit.
I mean, real estate agents typically are people, we have some narcissistic tendencies, but we want to be important to people. We want to feel like, legitimate realtors, and maybe this approach would just kind of undermine, our authority in the real estate business. But I'm thinking of some ways around that. Here's one thing I tell people, like, hey, I'm offering this to you. This is why I'm doing it. I really want to get my foot in the door. And using language like this, real talk with people is very, very powerful. They can relate to that. Somebody who is a hustler, who is willing to work for it. We all need a foot. Like every super successful person has needed a foot in the door. And so this is just very relatable to people. So we can ask for that foot in the door, and then we could say, hey, but just keep this between us. Because the biggest thing you probably want to avoid is building a reputation of being a commission cutter. I think that is far less of a polarizing issue now than it used to be. And it's because of, the NAR lawsuit and just the whole restructuring of the commission. I mean, you're going to be offered a commission, but you don't really know what it is. I mean, I've had two transactions here recently where the agent did not have a predetermined buyer's agent commission set by the seller prior to going on the market. And so they'll just say, hey, just write in what you feel like you are worth or whatever, what your fee is, and I'll do my best to get the seller to approve it. And you don't know if the seller is going to approve it or come back with a lower number. You just don't know. So, commissions, out the freaking window. When I closed that lot, and there was no other agent involved, the title agent didn't say, "Hey man, why are you working for $3,000 on it? I mean, why are you discounting your services so much?" And of course, this is all a means to an end. This is a strategy that we're employing. This is not the way we're going about it.
I
Yeah.
believe. I mean, I'm kind of like on the same boat that you're in, Jason. Like, I mean, I would have done the same thing. Like, I mean, I've done it for some of my clients and gotten, I'll cut a commission a little bit, but then from that one listing, I got in three other listings or got in three sales, and I made money. Like, if I wouldn't have gotten that listing,
Well,
you
but
know.
just to reiterate, Chris, I don't know how much you heard. We're talking about like totally exploding the market to not just like, hey, I did it for 3 last time, I'll do it for 2.5. We're talking about it from the context of, is it better to take $1,000 on a $700,000 listing than sit there and battle for 2.5 or 3?
And I would just add on that, Chris, what I am proposing here is that we take massive action around this. Like we commit as a group that this is what we're going to do. We're going to exploit this opportunity that exists and take business where we can take it. It will just get as much of it as we can by any means necessary between now and the end of the year. And then having something to actually measure at the end of the year and go, all right, well, what were the results? And we can talk about it from week to week, but it would give us a lot of data to analyze at the end of the year and go, well, shit, Anissa made $20,000 that she wouldn't have made otherwise had she not made this offer. So I don't think anybody on the call, or probably most of the people that will watch this replay, are actively prospecting for sale by owners or expires, especially not in this way. Going, all right, what commission are you offering? So let's say if for sale by owner offers 2.5 commission, 2.5%, I can say, well, listen, can we bump that? What if we bump that up 0.5%? made it and rounded up to 3, and I give you a full service listing. And one at the end of the transaction, you are highly motivated to give me a 5-star review. Like, I don't even have to ask. You're like, send me a link to your Google reviews. I'm freaking blown away by all the service, the level of service that I got from you and all the money I saved. Okay. And of course we can go, all right, well, I'd love a 5-star review, but just let's not talk about all the money because I'm trying to, there's a reasoning behind, there's a method to this madness, right? So would you do it? Would you do it? How would you do it? When are you going to start doing it? All right. So remember that step 1 is to go to the Zillow, sorry, I keep saying that. Go to Google. All right. If I type in Hoover FSBO, there's a bunch of them. There's 2, holy shit, there's 3 FSBOs in Rossbridge. 3 FSBOs in Rossbridge that Blake could call up and go, hey, I'm gonna list your house for $500. I'm gonna list it for $1,000. I'm gonna list it for 1%. Make them an offer that they just cannot refuse. And if they say, hey, what's the catch? Then Blake says, well, I've been living in this community since, 2021, and I haven't taken a listing in here yet. And I really want to get my foot in the door, and I know I can do a good job, and I know I've got the experience and yeah, to get this done. I just need somebody to believe me enough to give me a chance to show them what I can do. People respond to language like that, y'all, because it is absent in society today, right? If that is too aggressive, like I know Blake has the intestinal fortitude to pick up the phone and just go right into it with these people. Not all of us can do that. So what are some ways we can soft play this? You've got the open house offer, right? If you're good at marketing, you're decent at marketing. Like Chris may not be able to create a 20-minute YouTube video, long form YouTube video, but he could get it on YouTube Shorts in a jiffy. So, I just want to provide some marketing support, marketing exposure. There's no such thing as too much free marketing. I had one of the FSBOs tell me that not too long ago, like, yeah, I appreciate the offer, but I've already got it on, Zillow. I've got it here. I've got it there. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I go, well, can there ever be, is there such thing as too much free marketing? And he was like, that's a good point. And so here we go. Here's where it started. Outside of commitment. I mean, is anybody fired up, motivated to try this like today? If not, I just would love to hear like what's your thought process around why or why not? Like what would be holding you back from just saying, hey, I'm going to carve out an hour tops today and approach some for sale by owners. And while y'all are thinking about responses and stuff, I'm just going to go over here to see what else is going on. So Pelham, there's a for sale by owner in Alabaster. There's small numbers out there, unless we're Anissa and we go Huntsville. Let's just see what this says. Huntsville, FSBO. I mean, there's so many for sale by owners in Huntsville. It's unbelievable. Let's give me 31 records. Ooh, that's a nice one. 775 Huntsville for sale by owner. Been on the market 65 days. So this is another thing I look at when I go to Zillow. I'm looking for price reductions, and I'm looking for really a property that's probably been on at least 30 days. That 30-day mark, especially post 60 days, they really start to get motivated. So there's a bunch in here. Price cuts over 30 days, 89 days on market, 52 days on market. So a lot of opportunity there. And if I go to Birmingham, FSBO, I'm going to get a pile of dog crap for most of these, but it's got 16 homes in Birmingham. Here's a condo for 315. Pile of shit, pile of shit, pile of shit. Yeah, it's a lot of pile of shit, but there is a condo in there for 315. Trustville. Let's see what's going on in Trustville. 5 listings in Trustville, 449, 799. Pile of shit, pile of shit, pile of shit. There's 2 in there that are looking good. So click on the FSBO listing, scroll down just below the description of the listing. I'll see the phone number. I can forewarn that number and I can start texting. So let's close out, I think, by just exploring the paths of least resistance. So the thought of calling a for sale by owner to make an offer probably doesn't appeal to us, to most of us on the call. So let's just text. What's your offer going to be? So you need to decide what is going to be your unique value proposition to approach this for sale by owner. And here initially, we're just trying to get some dialogue going. If we can't all be Blake and go in for the kill on the first call, let's warm it up a little bit. Let's slow play this thing a little bit. So what's our offer going to be? Is it an open house? Is it some marketing? I would think one of those, let's just keep it super simple. One of those two things. One of those two things. All right. So if they say, yeah, I'm open to an open house, well, I need to get in there and get some photos and get some video clips. I may not be able to, like I said, produce a long form piece of YouTube content, but I can definitely, I mean, everybody on the call, with the exception of maybe Blake, could do some marketing with this, to have a marketing approach to this to lead up to the open house. I see Alex, Anissa, Chris all doing like reels and stories and things like that that are creative. So we can all do this. Most of us can do this to get this thing going, right? So if marketing is not Blake's superpower, then him calling up directly and going, hey, I'll sell your house in 60 days or less for $500 or $1,000. Shit, if I'm a for sale by owner, I'm going, whoa, what? Maybe, yeah, let's talk about this. So we have different superpowers. We need to figure out what can we do? What do we know how to do that could benefit this for sale by owner? Now, if I'm looking at somebody that's been on the market for a number of days and reducing the price, I'm like, come on, there is opportunity written all over this. So what say you guys? Anything in the comments? Anybody have anything they want to say? What do we have to lose by doing this? I mean, they're going to tell us no, or they're going to tell us yes. If they tell us no, we don't die. And then I would keep calling these people back. If they say no, just check back in. I had one for sale by on their lake, just tell me flat out no. And this was a no to a video offer. Okay. When they told me no, this is all via text. I replied back and said, hey, thank you so much for your consideration. I really appreciate you giving it some thought. If you ever change your mind, please know this offer stands. I'm sitting on go. I'm ready to get out there when you are. So maybe let's not shut the door on this completely. No response. I got the red receipt, but no response. Probably been 2 or 3 weeks. So yesterday evening, doing a little FSBO prospecting. And I did not notice this before, but I noticed it last night. There was one photo on Zillow of this for sale by owner, and it's fuzzy. It's a pixelated picture. It looks terrible. So I was like, man, I know we kind of, put a pin in this, but, I hope I'm not offending you and irritating you too much by, approaching you again with this. But I just noticed that you've got one pixely photo on Zillow, and I can take aerial photos, lakeside aerial photos that would really get a buyer's attention for free. Are you sure? Now, what I could do is I could just go take the picture, take the aerial photos, send it to him, go, hey, I've just felt like you needed this. Here, just take these, use them, don't use them. Every time I go and see your listing on Zillow, I'm like, I don't know. It makes me insane because I'm such a marketing guy and I have such, a high standard for listing marketing. I just couldn't stand it. So please use these photos and I hope they help. And if you need me further down the road, if you get open to me doing some marketing, give me a call. Proactive, be super proactive. So I think what we need to do here, right? Like, I think Blake needs to commit to calling these 3 FSBOs and going, hey, here's my offer. We need to get his buy-in from that. I'm proactively doing it, right? I got a FSBO listing expiring that I listed expiring this week that I got some major business from. Who else is like, shit, I'm doing this. What do I got to lose? Now, Chris may say, this would be very legitimate on Chris's part because Chris may say, you know what, guys? I'm going to make my kind of finish strong challenge to just keep going deeper and deeper into my niche and my niche marketing. And then we're like, cool. I mean, I couldn't be happier, right? But if we need money, if we need, like, I'm not doing this call justice. We need to simplify this even further. right? Because if I'm on this call, like Anissa has, how many listings have you taken and sold? One, two? Alex, have you taken and sold a listing? Do you know how to deliver an effective like listing presentation? So let's do this for training purposes. Like we just need to learn and we're going to make some money at it. You know, the money will be, if we make some commission dollars or if we get some flat fees, that's icing on the cake. Right. But we've gotten so much confidence from the learning opportunity, the experience. We've gotten some credibility on social from the marketing. Man, we're feeling good. Is everybody off doing other shit? Should we end the call now? Thoughts on this? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to be doing this because I'm always doing it. I thought it'd be good if you did it. But just think, let us close this out. You take 5 listings between now and the end of the year that you wouldn't have had without pursuing them this way. What's that going to do for your business, your confidence? Think about it. All right. See y'all next week.